Hello, everyone. This is Katana Abbott, and I want to welcome you to Smart Women Talk, where I search the world for smart women and a few good men. And this includes best-selling authors, thought leaders, and change agents who are on that leading edge. So our topics include things like money, business, health, inspiration, and the metaphysical. So our theme this month on Smart Women's Empowerment, which is our nonprofit entity that hosts all these different wonderful things, is leadership, women, and personal power. And the subject line on our easing this month was actually badass leadership in honor of Katie Macks, who's our fabulous guest today. So I want to start the show off with a quote from Dolly Parton. If your actions create a legacy that inspires others to dream more, to learn more, to do more, and become more, then you are an excellent leader. Now, I'm sure you guys know about Dolly and her fabulous career as a singer, but I got to visit Sevierville, Tennessee, which is her hometown. And that's where I heard about the Imagination Library. And it's a book giving program that she started out because she wanted to make sure that all children had access to books. And you probably can't believe this, but some children don't, you know. And so she created this entity, and it's for children from birth to 5 all around the world. And she did this because she knew that someday her dreams would come true. And she wanted to make that happen for children too when she became successful. So this is the clincher. Today, her organization has given out 142 million books to children. I mean, it's just amazing. So there are so many other stories like this. In the newsletter, I shared the story of Peggy Tabor, who went to Africa at 60 and did a 4-year stint there. And she came to me and she said I could share her story because she was on her show when she came back, and she got Smart Woman of the Year award. And she had gone through the technology bubble and wanted her money to grow for her while she left and went away. And basically, when she came back, we were having lunch after this 4-year stint, and we had been publishing. She had been writing letters to me, and I've been publishing letters from Africa in my newsletter. And we had huge readings. She had a huge following because of this. And I said to her, was she happy with what I had done for her? Because I was her financial advisor. And she looked at me and said, Katana, she says, I'm sitting here in this beautiful restaurant, drinking a glass of clean water with ice cubes. She goes, in Africa, I lived in a hut with a dirt floor and had to go down to the stream and get a bucket of water for my water. And I had to try to filter it. And she said, so my Social Security is now a millionaire lifestyle. So her legacy was that not only was she happy with what she had, she said, I actually want to take money out of my account and go back to Africa and build a well for my village. And she did. Oh. So that's like leadership. And what Dolly was talking about is not only leadership, but leaving a legacy. So, you know, my question to you today is, you know, what is your dream and what is the legacy that you want to leave? So I'm really excited to talk to Katie. I found her website. I think it's fabulous. I was impressed that she was so out there. And you know what? I think we all need this. We need this. So I'm just so excited to be interviewing Katie Macks. She's a coach, trainer, and author. Her program is Badass Engagement, and it's ushering in an entirely new model of leadership. And some of the things we're going to touch on is how to be lit up and turned on in your life and business, how being this way changes everything for the better, you know, to have that energy and vision and just confidence, and why radical self-care is a must. And I always say self-care begins at midlife, because so many people think when I retire, I'll have time to exercise. So I'm very curious to hear about that and why it's finally time to stop being the best kept secret and how to be the leader that you truly know you are. And wow, that really hits right here, I'm sure, with a lot of us because of the self-doubt that we go through as women. So Katie Macks is a leadership trainer and coach for entrepreneurs and business leaders who are committed to changing the way they relate, which therefore changes the way they lead. Katie is a maverick leader who joyfully challenges the status quo. She's changing the face of leadership by pivoting from the outdated patriarchal model of power over to the new paradigm of leadership that focuses on power with. So Katie's work is based on emotional intelligence, vulnerability, clarity, collaboration, and courageous communication. Really powerful. And it's revolutionizing the way business is done. Yay. Okay, Katie, welcome to Smart Women Talk. I'm just so thrilled to have you here today.
Oh, thank you, Katana. I am too. I'm so happy to be here with you.
So, we always like to start the show out learning about people's pasts and how they, the story. So, we'd love to hear from you a little bit about, how you got here, a little bit about this journey and, maybe about this mission. And because I think there's probably something that happened that caused you to be here today.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, I'm going to start with childhood because that's where so much happens, right? So I grew up in San Francisco and was just having a normal little life until around age 6. And then a lot of dynamics started to happen in my life. There was sexual abuse from age 6 to 9. And I just was this confident little kid who, by the time I was 9 years old, I just was already so defended. And what was really probably the most masterful thing I did was I just would not let anyone know how vulnerable I felt. Right. Like I just shut down my feelings. And then I've just kind of lived my life like that. Right. It was really, really challenging, but I became a leader. Right. So like the beautiful thing about our challenges in life is they lead us to where we need to go. Right. And that's really what I learned. I became a leader really young. I was president of my student body. I mean, I was and I was a wild child at the same time. So nobody really knew what to do with me. And I became a truth teller. And that's also part of leadership. I just like, if there's an elephant in the middle of the room and nobody wants to talk about it, I will let you know there's an elephant in the middle of the room. So I so value leadership. I so value what happened to me because it inspired me to make a difference in this world. I know what suffering is, and I want to help people move from that because suffering just begets more suffering. Mm-hmm. Right. And in leadership, what I've learned over the years is we have to get to know ourselves. We must become friends with ourselves, our emotions. And that's really the journey that I've been on my entire life. I've been a seeker. I went to college, studied psychology, and then I realized I didn't want to be a therapist because I didn't have the patience. I'm much more of a coach where there's an ability to move a little bit faster than therapy. And I value therapy. Do not get me wrong. I think therapy is wonderful.
But it is so different though, because, someone was saying to me the other day how they were fine or their husband was fine until the therapist brought up the past. And then he just totally flipped out and it was horrible. And he got so stuck where with coaching, I know you take where the person is right now and you address the past, but you find the gift in it. That's
it.
Yeah.
I mean, I interestingly enough, I'm kind of surprised I'm saying this, but a few years ago, I did an incredible workshop. I'm always learning. I'm always taking classes. And I did this 10-day workshop called The Ultimatum. And we were asked to write a letter to someone we had incompletions with, right? And I've done that so many times. So I kind of rolled my eyes and was like, oh my God, another.
Are you taking Yes to Success?
No, I
Oh,
haven't.
okay, because we just did that Deborah Poneman. That was just on the last assignment. So go ahead.
Okay. Okay.
In
But now
completion.
I'm interested. I like that. I like
Yeah.
how it sounds. But
So you had to write that letter.
yeah, I had to write the letter, and a friend of mine said, "Why don't you write it to the guy that molested you?" And I was like, "Whoa, now that would be a stretch, right?" And in writing the letter, the intention of the letter was to find the gifts out of the turmoil.
Mm-hmm.
And I wrote this letter, and I first of all, it ignited so much compassion in me. Like I got really curious. I stopped being the victim, right?
Mm.
And then I got really curious about, I wonder what happened to him, because that, like, something must have happened to him to cause him to do that. But I also wrote out, it was a 3-page letter, and I wrote out all of the leadership stances that I've taken. I'm an activist. I have been a leader in everything I've done. And it came out of that. I found my voice.
From that letter?
Yes. Now I've been doing work, but I found my voice in a very potent way, meaning there was a part of me that just really wanted to hang on to victimhood, right? Like just see me know that I suffered. Oh my God, because that's what we want to be seen.
Right.
But the shift that occurred was I can be seen as this empowered leader rather than the victim. And I also realized that like we were still we're bound by trauma, and I didn't want to be bound anymore, right? So I wrote the letter to release us both. And what really released me, Katana, was like I got free. And I also think it's years of work, right? Years of work, but I was ready to be done. Now,
they've talked about the cords that connect us with in all those situations in our life, the incomplete, when you have things that are, let's say you promised you were going to do something, or you owed someone some money, and you think it's too late. It's not a big deal. I'm sure they forgot about it. But they say that there's a cord.
There is.
That's connecting you. And so when we can do those kind of exercises, and I've actually, done that with people where we took that cord and we put it down in Mother Earth and got rid of it and healed the hole. And, I don't know exactly where that came from, but it just seems it is so powerful to be able to go back and address those things rather than run from them or hide from them.
Totally. Yes, that is the answer. If we are going to stand in our true power, we cannot run from the things that have bound us. We can't, because we just keep running into the same wall.
Yeah.
Right. Like, so we can think, oh, I've made it through this, or I've made it through this. And then there's the wall again. And it's like, the other thing that I have found is there's just layers of it. Right. So even though I feel really good, it doesn't mean that there might not be a time where I get really triggered, and I get to face it again at a deeper level. And I think that's what is so critical. We need to be brave to face what occurred. And it takes time. So it doesn't just happen overnight. Like I became a seeker at a very young age. Like, what is life about? Why am I here? What is the meaning? What do relationships mean? I mean, I just didn't understand any of it because I saw all of the blocks in how we were trying to relate.
Yeah. And do you believe, just personally, do you believe that we come here with a purpose? We don't really know what it is, but perhaps before we come down, we actually choose that I want to have that kind of experience, because what you're talking about, I had a very similar path. Mm-hmm. And my father died when I was 6, and he was in the military, and he went out duck hunting and he drowned, and it destroyed my mother, and she was left with 3 kids and no skills. And she ended up marrying someone that she shouldn't have, that, she thought would take care of her. And he didn't. He was very abusive, the whole thing, just horrible for 9 years. And when she finally left him, and she had bought a house for cash with the money from the army. Mm-hmm. And so she was homeless with breast cancer, and then I followed, it's like out of the frying, we go back to the familiar. I married someone who was abusive, but instead of 9 years, it took 9 months to get out. right?
Well done, truly.
But all of that created the foundation for the work I'm doing with women. And I became a certified financial planner. And now I'm helping women with the emotional stuff too, not just the, the CFP stuff I can do, but anyone who's a CFP can do that. I like to get into what you're talking about, this stuff, the spiritual stuff, because this is where the magic happens, I believe, because we have these disempowering beliefs that start in our childhood, and they create something like, I'm not good enough, I never have enough, I need to prove I'm right, I'm going to lose what I have. I do this thing with money personalities, so you're probably picking up on those. There's like 5 of them that are really, major. Love personality, buy, fill a hole in your heart type of thing. Mm-hmm. And when we can do work like you just said, with the letter, one of the exercises I do is have them write a letter. It's so funny you said that. And I still have not written the letter to my stepfather. Mm-hmm. So maybe it's time.
Maybe it is. And I think what's really important is to make that genuine decision. Am I really ready? Mm-hmm. Right? Am I really ready to move from really feeling victimized? Because there's something so at home for me in that victim story. It's what we're thrown to, right? Mm-hmm. It's just part of being human. But I think if we're really ready to take a step, then the answer is yes, go for it. And the truth is there's going to be layers, right? So that letter may take you to one place, and then there might be another letter that you need to do for your own well-being a few years down the road. It's all part of our evolution, right? It's really important.
Well, in working with women, Katie, do you find that women see themselves differently than others see them?
Oh, yeah.
I see you so powerful. I don't see any of your flaws, but you're seeing with totally different eyes.
Right. Well, I just assure you, I have many flaws, and I brag about that, right? I mean, we're human, right? And we are powerful. I think that scares women. We are so powerful. We give life, and we have been so conditioned in the patriarchy. And when I talk about the patriarchy, this is really important. This isn't a blaming thing about men.
Right.
The patriarchy is a system we grew up in. It's the only system we know, right? Yeah. So what I've learned is I have taken what I've learned from the patriarchy, and I, like for misogyny, for example, I have inner misogyny. When I doubt myself, when I shame myself, when I berate myself for not doing something the way I thought I should. Mm-hmm. It's like I've adopted that misogyny, which I can't stand really, and then I have put it on myself. We are so hard on ourselves. And the level of doubt, you brought that up earlier, we doubt ourselves. We want to fit in and belong, and so we compromise, and then we lose sight of who we are, and we also do not keep the focus on ourselves. We are so externally focused with our family, with our clients, with our community, that we forget that we are a part of that. That's part of what I think is so incredibly draining, is when we just pour into things and then there's nothing left for ourselves.
Yeah, so we're very notorious for overgiving.
Yes.
So, one of the things we're going to talk about is this idea of self-care. Mm-hmm. So I'd love to talk about how self-care fits in to leadership. I mean, I'm assuming it's to keep you healthy, so you're not totally burnt out, but I bet it's so much more than that. Oh. And I want to tell you that when I start someone in my financial planning process, we start with a visioning exercise. The visioning exercise, the very first writing they're doing is about mind, body, spirit. It's like the hierarchy is not starting with the money. It's mind, body, it's God, family, work. Mind, body, spirit, we're the temple, right? We have to care for us, family, friends, and fun, and then work, legacy, career. That comes to me last. You have to do these things first. Absolutely. And that's in working with money. And so how does all this self-care fit into leadership?
So when we're drained or we are not taking care of ourselves, it spills out everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
You might not think it does, but we are sensitive beings, and we pick up on stuff, and we make a lot of assumptions. And I will share that I have had a tendency to burn out. I have hit walls because I have been an all or nothing person,
Like
right?
high
It's like,
and then down and high.
yeah, it's like I'm all in, and then it's like I go and I go and I go, and then it's inevitable that I crash, right? And I
Mhm.
made a decision back in 2016. That was the last time I really burnt out. And I was working with a financial advisor who said, "You're going to start this business. It needs to be up and running in 2 years." I'm like, and profitable, right? And I'm like, 2 years? I'm like, oh, I can do that. I did. And I paid the heaviest price. And then I totally fell off after 2 years, right? Because I had no life force left, and the thought of self care, it didn't fit in,
Yeah.
right? Like I didn't have time to exercise. I didn't really have time to cook and really take care of myself. My sleep was screwed up, and it was screwed up too because I was also perimenopausal, or actually I was menopausal at that point, and
Yeah.
it just, my sleep changed. I was so off track, and yet I kept pushing, right? And this is part of the patriarchy. I know how to push. I didn't know how to attract. Like I just thought that was too woo woo, like, oh, just attract clients, from my sense of well-being and like being a role model. I just thought, no, I got to push, push, push to make this work. And that is so,
But it worked.
it did, but the price I paid
Yeah.
was ridiculous, right?
Yeah.
And then I went into a shame spiral and so much doubt, and what am I really doing? And oh my God, maybe I'm not as gifted at this as I thought I could be. I mean, I just had when we don't have energy, we are not in a good place, right?
Yeah.
And it's like you said, like when you're building the foundation so that you can look at money, that is so that you can stand strong.
Right. Right.
That's such a genius way to take people through their relationship with money. That is so wonderful. And that is not where most people would start.
Do you remember Harv Eker talking about, he's not the first one. I mean, I don't think anything is original. Everyone repackages stuff, right? But I remember him, I went to the Millionaire Mind Intensive, and he talked about the big rocks. So if you had a bucket and you had big rocks, you had gravel, sand, and water or something like that. And if you had the water in there first and then you put the sand, you'd never get the other things in.
That's right.
And so you start with the big rocks, and then where the analogy comes in is that the big rocks, number one, are going to be us, right? We have to take care of ourselves, and not just exercising, because I had a friend who would get up at 4:30 so she could spin, for God's sake. And she was so wired all the time.
Yeah.
And so it's all the stuff. It's, what is it that really brings you pleasure? Because we need pleasure as well.
Okay,
joy.
You are speaking my language. So self-care is really deep, and we'll get back to that because I just want to tap into pleasure and turn on. I talk about turn on, being lit up, and amplifying pleasure so that we can elevate into the space of love for ourselves and others.
Yeah.
And we have it backwards. We have it like, okay, so I'm going to push and I'm going to accomplish, and when I accomplish this, then I'll give myself this. And that line keeps moving, right? Like we don't stop to celebrate ourselves. We don't stop to appreciate ourselves and what we have. We do, like stopping and pausing is probably the first key to self-care.
Right.
Like getting off that treadmill of all of our duties and obligations and saying, I'm going to pause. And the pause can be for 5 minutes. You won't die in 5 minutes, right?
Right. That's that meditation thing. What's that all about?
Yeah.
That's a pause.
Exactly. So like what I want to impart on your audience and all of my clients and anyone who's willing to listen is that when we put ourselves first and we are nourished, we are not sleep deprived. We are not in a state of lack. We actually are in a state of abundance because we're putting ourselves first. And this took me a long time to be able to like surrender to this because of my drive.
Right.
But I always thought I should be doing something else rather than me.
Right.
And now Like my rituals are slow and deliberate, and it brings me into a state of presence versus thinking, okay, I got to do this and I got to do this. Okay, this happened last week. What am I doing? And like being in my head, which is not a very nice neighborhood to be in,
Right,
right?
right.
And to really
You, to
focus.
bring yourself back into your body, right?
We operate from the neck up,
Yeah.
and we wonder why we're so disconnected, because our
Hmm.
body gives us information about being excited or tired or frustrated, or it's all information for us.
Right.
And we like to push away the information because that information is usually tuned into feelings.
Right. Oh, yeah, because all of our experiences are actually stored in our body.
Yes.
And that's why we get triggered when things happen. And then we go into defense mode.
That's right. Or we just make these assumptions. I mean, I spend time every day meditating, reading things that inspire me, writing. I have a ritual. I'm in a self appreciation women's group on Facebook, and it is a commitment to write what we appreciate about ourselves every day. And it's not just the good stuff, it's the stuff that like I get challenged by. So an example would be, I appreciate that I got really scared last night and I shut down because I went into self-protection mode in my relationship. And once I recognized that, I became so appreciative that I am aware of what I did, so now I can make a different choice.
Right.
It's appreciating all aspects of ourselves, our genius, our challenges, because all of ourselves makes us who we are.
Right.
I have a teacher.
Or when people try to, calm you down and tell you, my husband doesn't like it when I drink too much at a party and get loud, right? My girlfriends all think it's hysterical and they have fun. We joke but I shouldn't be talking about him like that. We joked about it before, but I remember when I was younger and all the wives were all around and I was a little bit talkative because we were making up these blender drinks, and I looked and he was a little bit horrified, and I think it's because he didn't want me to be seen that way. And it really bothered me for a long time, and I felt like I couldn't be myself around him. Now we're way past that now. We just celebrated 35 years, so
Congratulations.
and he's the most fabulous guy. But
Yeah.
you know what, that shut me down for a long time, and I'm just wondering what happens to a little girl who I saw a little girl at a event I was at, and we were outside and there was a fire pit. It was in a JW Marriott, and the music was going, and she started dancing kind of, just really moving. And I looked at her dad's face and it looked like he was going to die. He didn't know what to do.
Right.
And so they want to shut it down, don't go out of line. And this happens to us as women. So
All the time. And
it
this
affects us for leadership.
It completely affects us. I mean, all the messages that we get, whether it's advertising, media, a husband, a father, a group looking, in a judgmental way. That's what I'm talking about, the inner misogyny. We then embody that and think we've done something wrong.
Mm-hmm.
And I will say, as a powerful woman, I take up a lot of space, and I will tell you that I have had so much shame about that my entire life. It really hasn't been until the last, I'd say, 5 years, and I still struggle with it from time to time.
Define a lot of space.
It means that I just have big energy, right? So when I walk into a room, I'm noticed, right? And I don't even have to say anything. It's just I have a lot of life force energy.
Yeah.
And a lot of people don't like that, Katana. A lot of people, they don't even give me a chance, right? They just think, whoa, she's a little too intense or whatever. And so I have spent a lifetime trying to adjust myself to be acceptable.
Mm-hmm.
And that is exhausting.
It
And
is.
so, and
But
all,
isn't that what we've been told that our whole lives? I mean,
yes,
very few children are raised with their parents going, yes, totally express yourself,
exactly.
Nowadays, maybe more, but
Yeah.
I grew up in the 60s and 70s, and that wasn't acceptable.
Oh, be a good girl. Good girls are quiet. Like, don't touch anything. Like, and it's not that that's bad, but it smushed our ability to
Mhm.
be in full self-expression.
What are the boys told?
Oh, go for it. You go. Like, oh, keep going. And yeah, it's like, and in
Speak
education,
up or you're not going to win. You'll be a loser.
that's right. That's right. That's right. It is. And it's exhausting for them too, right? Like, because I work with men and women in badass engagement, and the men are exhausted from that just drive also of proving that they can take it all. And we just, I believe we are in an era where we are being invited to
Mm.
step into our own authenticity. And I don't like the word authenticity because it's so overused, but it is like, it is our voice, it is our truth, it is self-expression, it is acceptance that as women we are emotional beings. That's actually our superpower. But because we've been shamed and told not to feel, or I mean, I was told my whole life, you are too sensitive. Well, I will tell you, I am extraordinarily sensitive. I'm an empath. I pick up on energy. That's my gift. And is it difficult sometimes for my partner? Yes, it is.
But you
Because
come across the opposite.
I know.
See?
I
So
know.
what is that all about?
I think it's like I said, my big energy, my excitement. I am so turned on in life. And as a leader, I need a safe place. And this is why I created Badass Engagement. I need a safe place to be raw, real, and beautiful so that I can like express myself, because I don't want to operate out of an image, right? I honor my whole being. And a mentor of mine, she calls it 88 keys in a piano, from like, your shadow side to your light side. I bring all of me. Now, I don't dump my emotions, but like, I am getting informed by my emotions with everything I do. And I need a safe container to be able to say, oh my goddess, I doubt that I'm doing the right thing. I don't really know what I'm doing. As an entrepreneur, so often we don't know what we're doing, right? And
Right,
as we
right.
grow, it's like, oh my gosh, how am I going to be able to make these adjustments? Well,
Well, because we're not in corporate being told anymore. All of a sudden, we're the boss.
that's right.
And we create the culture and the vision and the values and the whole thing is up to us, and it's a lot of freedom, but it's very scary too.
Oh,
Especially I had a business partner when I first started who was very much from corporate and etiquette and all this stuff. And so I was really excited to have her. And at first we were, engaging with corporate and stuff, and it came in very, very valuable. But at the same time, if that doesn't allow you that freedom to do what you just said, which is create a business called Badass Engagement. Oh my God, when I saw that, I laughed out loud. I said, I gotta meet you.
well, like you said earlier, I have tried to color within the lines my
Yeah.
whole life. That's not my nature. I press edges. I challenge the status quo. But in my desire to fit in and belong, I tamped that down. And I ended up working with a coach, and this is about finding your tribe in your business, who said, you need to be all of who you are. I mean, edgy, out there. And I was like, oh, what are people going to think? But what I want you to know is, and I've been worried about that, right?
No,
Is
and it is, because you're right. We do worry about what everyone's going to think.
totally, right? But that ends up diverting me from my own mission, my own anxiety and fear about not being liked, not being accepted, has driven so much unconsciously of my actions.
Hmm.
So now, as you said, like my website, it's out there. I'm out there. And that's my authenticity. I am one big fat permission slip for people in my tribe to show up, like fully show up, as opposed to trying to navigate Like, okay, are they going to like this? Are they not going to like this? If you have a team and you're worried about being liked, you're screwed. Like you're just screwed because not everyone's going to like you.
So do you work with corporations?
No, I decided not to, and I'll tell you why.
Yeah.
If the upper management and the CEO wants to do the work, I'm all in. But I'm not going to go in and try to fix something for a corporation that has no intention to practice what I'm teaching. It would fall on deaf ears. So if someone really wants a cultural change, then they get to do the work.
Yeah.
Right. And so I made a decision a few years ago. I am working with entrepreneurs and business leaders that are in corporations.
Okay, so because there's where that connection is.
Right.
Because I remember getting a call and they asked me if I wanted to be in Mentium, which is mentors to women, in corporate. And I said, I don't think you want me because I will be helping them figure out what their true passions are and their purpose and helping them get into their own business. I've been self-employed. I did have 20 years with the Mayor Prize, but I chose the independent track. So I owned my own business. And then I went to strategic coach and learned how to make it boutique, even though I was part of a big, and then I ended up leaving to come do this. At around 47, that same thing you were talking about, lack of self-care and just this whole thing. There's something that happens to women, I think, around that 45 to 50, there's something major that happens. And a lot of us just break out.
Totally.
Don't you think that? Maybe men too, but I mean, I really see it with women.
Oh, I do too. Well, you mentioned that. So after college, I became a leadership trainer for a big company in San Francisco, and I did that for years. And then I ended up traveling the world. I was like, life's short. I actually took care of my mother through her death, and I realized the one passion of mine is travel, and I hadn't given myself permission to do that because I was always working. So I traveled the world, and I came back, and I started a business, and then I met my partner, and he got laid off in Silicon Valley. And he said, I'm like getting old and I don't know what I can do. I don't know where I'm going to be appealing. So I'm going to get into real estate. So I went, oh my goodness, that's perfect. You're like from the building background. I am from, leadership. What a perfect match. Well, he didn't like it and he didn't do well because it is not his personality. And I got into it and I had incredible success. And I share this because if your listeners can just take this in, I encourage you to follow your heart. For 10 years, I worked 7 days a week. I made more money than I ever had, but because real estate, you get paid when something closes, you never know if anything's going to close. So there's such lack and fear in that industry. And after 9 years, I literally did not take a full day off. I would take partial time, but you'd get calls. And if you miss calls, you miss business.
I've heard that from real estate agents.
Oh, it's bless real estate agents. That's all I can say. I am so glad I'm not doing it anymore. I also burnt out in that field and I made more money. You'll appreciate this. I made more money than I ever had. And by the end, I was pretty suicidal. I was extremely depressed. I didn't honor myself at all. I was just always taking care of everybody but me.
Yes.
And that's when I actually, my knees dropped to the ground and I surrendered and I was sobbing and I said, either I'm going to die or I have to do something else. And I have no idea what it was.
Was that at midlife?
Yes, that was at 50 years old. And that's why I'm sharing this. At 50, I was like, I cannot continue to do this.
What happened?
I ended up.
You were going to say something. What was happening in your life? You said I interrupted you.
No, that's okay. That's okay.
Oh.
At that point, I had missed all of my nephews and nieces, important events. I gave everything up for the almighty job and my clients and the money.
Mm-hmm.
And there was no fulfillment. Talk about lack of legacy. No. I was a wreck. But like you said, I'm really good at showtime. So when it was time to go out, I was on it. But inside, I was so miserable. And I would close my door at night and cry and cry. And I would say, you are such a fraud. Like, you are such a fraud. Like, how can you put yourself out and this image and then be home and just be so miserable? So finally, when I surrendered and dropped to my knees and I reached out to people, see, like, that's something else leaders don't really do. We think we have to figure it out on our own. And that's a misnomer. We need each other, right? We need each other's feedback. We need each other's reflection. So I called people from my leadership days and they were all eager to support me. And I got certified as a relationship coach, relationship with self. And that's when I had my business Get Your Glow On, and it was fabulous. And then right before
Tell us about the Get Your Glow On. Was that all about the self-care
yes.
Because it seems like that was a good place for you to start.
Oh, it was. It was so important. It's all about relationship with self and becoming friends with our emotions and like stopping the judgment about ourselves and to really focus on what we want and desire rather than what we don't want. And we're much clearer about what we don't want than what we do want.
Right.
That's part of really standing in leadership, giving yourself time to say, what is it that turns me on? What is it that lights me up? What is it that amplifies pleasure, right? For myself and the people around me. Right. It's a critical piece. So yes, Get Your Glow On. GLOW was an acronym for growing, loving, opening, and willing. And it was phenomenal work. It was really beautiful. But I also got called when I realized we're going into a really difficult time, which is the time that we're in now. I'm intuitive, so I got
So what year was this when you started switching from Get Your Glow On?
I started getting the messages in early 2015, and I didn't want
this is very recent then.
Yes. Oh, it's
wow.
Really recent.
Oh my goodness. Okay.
So I started hearing these things like, you got to go back into leadership. And I'm like, no, I've put all of my energy and time and effort and love and passion into Get Your Glow On. And they're like, no, leadership. And I'm like, no, I don't want to do leadership. I want to do this. But the messages kept coming. And then what I really came to understand is we are going to be heading into a huge shift, which I feel like we're in now. Right? Like so this was many years earlier. And so finally what I did is I got all these downloads and then I said, I'm going to close Get Your Glow On. This was so bold. Talk about being a badass leader. And maybe not the wisest thing as a financial person, right? You could tell me, but I just was like, I have to shut things down before I start other things because when I have 2 feet, or 1 foot in an old thing and 1 foot in a new thing, nothing gets the best of me.
Right.
So I shut down Get Your Glow On and I started a badass engagement with a beta group because I didn't know if it was going to have legs, right? And it did. And people got so switched on. And it's because there was permission to be the full being that they are. Right. And that's
permission. I mean, what a powerful word when we think. I interviewed someone and he did a session with me. I hired him to do a session with me. And I remember it all ended up at the end. And I said, I feel like I need permission. He said, for what? I said, to have fun. And I didn't realize that I was so nose to the grindstone, right? Yes. And this idea of fun. And so what came from that, Katie, is, and it's probably my age too, of where I am now in my life, because I'm doing this whole thing on reinventing retirement. So you find something you're great at that you love, but you never have to retire. It's totally optional, because you keep working, doing something. Right. And so now before I do anything, I go through all of this to find out, is it going to be fun? Because I don't want to go do something if it's not going to bring me joy.
Oh. So that's incredible leadership, Katana. That in itself, that awakening of if it's not going to bring me joy, I don't need to waste my time doing it, right? We have gotten so many kudos from our culture with nose to the grindstone, suffer, keep going, put up with crap at work, just put up with it, just forget about it, all these things, and they don't support us. And then we wonder why we're miserable and our relationships with our kids are a struggle, or with our spouse. It's like we carry all this stuff and it gets placed in the wrong place, right? So all my frustration from work would come into my home. So at Badass Engagement, we don't separate professional and personal, because they're really one of the same. We show up in this, at work, and we show up at home. So
right. And a lot of us, work is at home, which makes it even worse.
That's right.
When your daughter says to you, Mom, why is it every time I want to just show you something quick, you go, I have to finish what you're doing. It's like, it's so important. You have to finish that sentence, that email or whatever. And for her to say that to me, it just breaks my heart. And she's an adult now. She's grown up.
Yeah. But that feedback is so important, right? For us not to beat ourselves up with. I mean, I think I want your listeners to take this away, which is like, we don't need to beat up on ourselves. We were born into a system. That's what we know. And what we're doing, you're doing it, I'm doing it. We're busting out of the system and creating something better. And that betterness has to do with joy, turn on. And we don't even feel like we're worthy of that, of joy and turn on, right? Like, it's amazing to me. And I didn't really think it was important until my life fell apart. And I think that's the blessing of our lives falling apart, is like, we hold on so tight because we're so afraid of change.
Right.
And then we can just let go and say, this isn't working.
But change in judgment too, or making a mistake.
Oh yeah. And if you're an entrepreneur, you're going to be making so many mistakes. I make so many mistakes every day, and I actually brag that. So, I make so many mistakes and I learn from them. Like,
that's great. That's great to be able to admit that, right?
Oh, totally. And that's the other piece of leadership. When we're together at Badass Engagement, we talk about the stuff that we're facing that is so hard, and how to transfer the expectations from home and the expectations from teams, and like the pressure that we put on ourselves. It's like, what if we were so turned on and we attracted people to our business? That's where I'm at. That's all I want. I don't want to sell people. I want people to know, I want what she has, because that's how I find my teachers. I want what they have. I'm stepping in.
The funny thing is, perhaps because we see each other so differently than others see us. So perhaps what we're attracted to in someone is what we really are. We're just afraid to shine.
Yeah. That's really it, because if we shine, then we're really seen for who we are. And that's actually really vulnerable. That's a vulnerable place, right? To be, like, matter of fact, nose to the grindstone, on this kind of very systematic train. It's like we don't even connect with ourselves. But when we shine, like, really with who we are, and we fumble, and we are seen, that's relatable. This other stuff that's so rigid is not relatable. In Badass Engagement, I really am on a mission to change the relationship with power. And at that, talk about my childhood, I was powerless, right? So there's no accidents that I am dealing with power and leadership, right?
Right. But you had to go through that whole path, the abuse, all the way through, being burnt out yourself, and then creating glow to be where you are today. You couldn't have jumped.
That's right. You cannot. And that's why honoring the process, that's why not being hard on ourselves. It's like, we're here wherever we are to get to where we want to go, but we have to honor where we are before we can get to where we want to go.
Absolutely.
But I want your listeners to hear this, because I think this is so important with power. In the patriarchal model, we only know power as dominance, power over, which amplifies fear. And the outcome of that is lack, shame, self-judgment, all of that, right? So that's the cycle we've been in, all of us, men and women. That true power And I believe this to my core. My belly's lit up right now. I believe it like every fiber of my being. True power is turn on being lit up. Imagine a world where people were turned on with what they did.
Mm.
Imagine the energy that would be out in the world. They are lit up, which ignites creativity and joy, right? And pleasure. It amplifies pleasure. And when we're in a state of pleasure, that's what we exude. And then we're in a state of love. That is true power, right? It's not power over, it's not dominating,
Hmm.
but we look at corporate, and that structure is in corporate. I know so many of my clients are like, just feel so beaten up in corporate and so not seen and so shamed, and they don't even communicate, right? They're just like, go do this, and there's just no
And they could
support.
be fabulous. They are fabulous,
Yes,
but they're not being able to shine to find that. They're not being able to shine with who
that's
they really are because they're being controlled, that
right.
power over.
That's right.
So if tell us a little bit of how someone can, I know you have an ebook that you're offering, but tell us a little bit about how someone can learn more about you, get the ebook, and engage with your organization and what that would look like.
Oh, beautiful. Okay, so I'm gonna tell you what my website address is: www.katiemacks, KATIEMACKS.com. And if you want my ebook, it's katiemacks.com/ebook, all in lowercase, and you will be taken right to the spot on my website. So, and it's a really fun book about finding your own vulnerability, finding your voice. I think it's really great. So
Probably we all need to read that.
yeah, it's a really sweet little ebook. And yeah, just peruse my website. If you have any desire to call me, I welcome calls, and my number is 510-847-9757. If this has spoken to you, I love having conversations with people because I am here to help humanity light up. Like in the big picture, I want us liberated. I
Mm.
have spent 40 years, 45 years being pretty bound. Actually, I'm just going to go to 50. 50 years feeling pretty bound. And now I'm turning 60 in September. And I feel like I am more free than I have ever been. And I want to impart that permission for people.
And I think there's something that happens when I turned 60, I didn't want to party. I didn't want to talk about it or anything. It just like I ignored it. Now I'm turning 62. I'm eligible for Social Security, which I'm going to put off till I'm 70. Okay, probably. But at the same time, I don't give a damn anymore. I don't care anymore. It's
That's
just there's a shift because you realize your time on earth is limited at this point.
that's right.
And I went through that thing. Now I'm looking at making this being very present and just allowing it to be as long as it can be with the self-care.
Yeah. Yeah. And look at us. I mean, both of us exercised before we were on the show. I love that. I was swimming this morning, right? It's like those opportunities I did not give myself until really a couple of years ago.
And we need to start before we retire. You can't wait. If you wait, it's too late.
That's right. And you know what I want to say is like self-care can look so many different ways. It can look like taking a bath, that's what we hear, or
And,
meditating. I meditate every day.
and why
Take
don't you tie this into your tip? Because we should
Okay.
probably, wrap it. Why don't you give us a tip about the self-care since that's such a big part of what you do?
Okay, so I'm going to give you two tips. One is self-appreciation. And I would grab a girlfriend and self-appreciate with each other so that you witness each other, what you appreciate, the good and the stuff you're challenged with. It will up level you in a way that you can't even imagine. So self-appreciation is key. The other thing that I do every day is I take dance breaks. Right. So I will turn on my music and I will dance. Sometimes I dance in front of the mirror, but I move my body and it helps me stay in my body.
Mhm.
The
Yeah.
mind body connection, spirit connection is critical. So dance breaks are actually really fun and they don't really seem like they would be an integrated part of the day, but they have become a necessity for me because it just changes the energy of what I'm doing. right?
And you don't need any equipment, and you can take it on the road.
That's right. That's right. But meditate, read things that turn you on. And if you don't have time, find some quotes and just resonate with them. Like, feed your soul. No one else is going to feed your soul. That is your job.
Yeah.
And that's actually a gift, right? To be able to feed yourself so that you are really available in your leadership and in your life.
Well, Katie, you've been a gift.
Oh, thank you.
You really have. So I'm so thrilled that I found you, that I've been able to share you with our guests, and that you kind of shook me up with your badass leadership. That was our easing theme. Our whole theme this month is about that. So thank you so much for being here. We appreciate it.
Thank you. It has been a joy. Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. So everyone, please come visit us at Smart Women's Empowerment. You can go to joinsmartwomen.com. And when you do, you get on our easing. It's only monthly, so you won't be, deluged with emails. You also will know who our guests are, and you get access to the Smart Women's Academy with all kinds of great free courses, as well as we have a 10-day meditation course we just launched. So come join us. It's free. And you also get something else we talked about, 100 days of inspirational quotes by women. So join Smart Women. I hope to see you there. And until next week, go out and live with more purpose, passion, and prosperity.